Almost 2 years ago, there was an excited energy in Atlanta. The state of Georgia was alive with anticipation. The Falcons had finally made it to the Super Bowl, and all of Georgia gathered to support their team. We looked forward to seeing the Falcons rise up and win against the Patriots. After the first half of the Super Bowl, the Falcons were up by 25 points. According to ESPN, no team had ever made up more than a 10-point deficit to win the Super Bowl. But when the game ended, the score was Patriots 34 and Falcons 28. My daughter was so upset, she stormed upstairs crying, and Falcons fans everywhere mourned the loss. For some reason, my reaction was the opposite. The very next morning, I woke up and bought Falcons t-shirts for the entire family. I know that someday the Falcons will go to the Super Bowl again, and when they do, I will be ready with t-shirts for the whole family. This isn't the Falcons' year yet, but the excitement can still be felt in the city of Atlanta as they host the Super Bowl. For those watching the game at home, the NFL will be launching a new Inspire Change initiative with television spots. The initiative seeks to create positive change in communities across the country. One community that can use some positive change is Georgia's own Stone Mountain. For years, Stone Mountain has been home to the world's largest Confederate Monument. However, it is time for Stone Mountain to become a Civil War monument that includes some of the hard-working slaves, the backbone of the South. William and Ellen Craft would be excellent candidates. I can just see them right next to those generals, surrounding them, slaves. It would be beautiful. William and Ellen lived on different plantations in southern Georgia. Ellen's father was the white plantation owner, and her mother was one of his slaves. Ellen was born a slave with a light complexion, which is a shame. The mistress of the house hated her for it and treated her very badly. At age 11, Ellen was given to her half-sister in another town and separated from her mother. William Craft also knew the sadness and loss associated with being a slave. His parents, 2 brothers, and a sister were all sold at auction. And when William and his 14-year-old sister found themselves on the auction block, he pled with her new owner and the auctioneer to let her say goodbye. They refused, and unable to do anything, he simply had to look on from a distance as his sister, with tears rolling down her cheeks, in despair, bowed a final farewell. After experiencing so much family separation, William and Ellen struggled with the thought of getting married, even though they loved each other. They had separate owners and knew that any children they had together would be born slaves. So instead of subjecting their future children to that life and possibly being separated from them or each other, they came up with a plan to escape to freedom. Ellen dressed up like a white, slave-owning plantation man. She wrapped her face in cloth and pretended to have a toothache and wrapped her arm up as if it was injured as well. She cut her hair, wore male clothes, and even donned a top hat. Ellen played the part of William's master, and with a few days off for Christmas, they started their 1,000-mile journey to the north. It was not easy, and they could not travel together. Ellen had to stay in character and remain with the white people, and William had to travel with the other slaves. After they reached freedom in the north, they began to tell others about their story and the life of a slave in the South. Eventually, they had to travel to England in order to remain free and safe. They never stopped telling their story and fighting for freedom, though. And when slaves became free in all of America, they returned to Georgia and started a school that they funded with their own money to help educate the poor. William and Ellen saw the injustice of slavery and rose up to escape it. Then they fought it and came back to Georgia to help others create a better life for themselves. Having them carved onto Stone Mountain would remind us of their story and others like them. Their story is a part of the South's story and deserves to be immortalized along with the generals that are currently carved onto Stone Mountain. Now there may be some who say we should get rid of the Confederate generals from the monument completely. However, even these men have a story to tell that is worth listening to. General Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson's life was not easy. His parents both died before he was 8, leaving him an orphan. He was considered by one of his uncles to be the least bright of the Jackson children. He made it into West Point College by the skin of his teeth, through sheer determination, and was ranked 94th when he started, dead last in his class. He worked hard and finished the 17th. Jackson's first wife, Ellie, as he called her affectionately, died after delivering a stillborn baby boy. When their funeral was over, Jackson stood at their single grave as snow fell around him until his pastor came and led him away. Jackson's faith was a big part of who he was. He prayed and read scriptures daily. He prayed everywhere and about everything. He even prayed before opening a letter to be prepared for its contents. Jackson's belief in God made him want to help all people, so he started a black Sunday school. Because of this act, his friend once remarked that he was emphatically the black man's friend. Although he owned a few slaves, he did not try to become a slave owner, and he was kind and generous to the few he did own. Additionally, Jackson was a Unionist, and he did not want to go to war. He said, "It is painful to discover with what unconcern they speak of war and threaten it. They do not know its horrors. I have seen enough of it to look upon it as the sum of all evils." Jackson even went to his pastor to talk about uniting everyone in prayer to avoid war. Then why? Why did Jackson go to war as a Confederate? Well, Jackson's first loyalty was to his state. He did not want the government to take power from Virginia or to invade it. When the federal government did that, he fought back with his fellow Virginians. Jackson's second wife, Anna, said that he never would have gone to war to fight to keep slavery going. Once war began, Jackson earned his nickname of Stonewall because he taught his men to stand their ground and not retreat. Jackson would probably have loved to be a Navy SEALs trainer today if he were alive. During his day, he was known for pushing his men faster and further than was thought possible. General Stonewall Jackson's determination inspired the South, but what he really wanted was to live the American dream by owning a home and living a simple life with his wife. Thinking back on his life, he said, "I too have crosses and am at times deeply afflicted, but however sore may be the trials, they lose their poignancy, and instead of producing injury, I feel that I am but much improved by the ordeal." Like Jackson after trials, the United States became a better country after the sore affliction of the Civil War. It became a better country because finally all of its citizens were free. Although the continued freedoms of blacks, women, minorities, and so many more are still fought for today, there is hope that someday we will all be treated and paid equally. In the meantime, having a monument dedicated to a bigger picture of the Civil War would be a step in the right direction. History should not be erased or forgotten, but learned from. I'm still hoping the Falcons can learn from their game with the Patriots and rise up to win a Super Bowl someday. But for now, let's inspire change to Stone Mountain. Let's create a Civil War monument and remember both sides of the South, the Confederate generals and the true backbone of the South, the slaves. In remembering, we will not repeat the mistakes of the past, and we will show that united we stand.